Okay, quick disclaimer before you watch this video. A few hours ago, Mike Israetel posted something on Instagram about his and Greg's debate interaction, and as you can see in the DMs, Greg was calling his followers morons, and it seemed like he was just in this debate for the money and using Mike Israetel's name to maybe get some views, which is pretty sketch to me. And overall, look, Mike Israetel knows the shit, everyone knows that, but I decided to make this video to give maybe a perspective from both sides to see how I can agree with both people. Just watch the whole video, it'll make sense. Definitely go watch their debate videos, all the videos that went on about their whole topic on training and intensity and volume and all that good stuff. Anyways, I just wanted to make that clear. That came out today, and that's kind of sketchy on Greg's part. So fuck you, Greg, that's not cool. All right, watch this video. What's going on, YouTube? My name is Doucette. Welcome to my channel. In this video, I want to talk about, give my response to the whole debate between Dr. Mike Israetel and Greg Doucette. I'm not sure if I said his name right, but basically, to give you a little background on how I know these guys, well, I actually just recently found Greg Doucette on YouTube, and apparently, he's got almost 200,000 subscribers, big name, a lot of people know him. I know he's got some pretty interesting accolades, like Guinness Book of World Records for most amount of deadlift reps for 500 pounds, something crazy. Has a bench press record, world record too. Dude is strong. He's big, personal trainer. He's got a lot of big client names as well. And then obviously, Dr. Mike Israetel is about as qualified as you can get. He actually was a professor at the college I used to go to, and one of his co-workers, one of his former students, Jared Feather, is one of my friends who I hung out with a lot and got to pick his brain a lot when I was down at college too. So I do have an interesting perspective, and I'm not going to be biased towards Dr. Mike Israetel. Tell you kind of what I think about their argument and who I agree with most, but a lot of people are talking about this and really want them to go head to head on a debate. I know Dr. Mike Israetel offered to do a live debate to create some content with Greg, and apparently Greg turned it down. I wish he wouldn't have. That would have made for some great content and made for a great chance for a lot of people to learn off that. But let's talk about basically what the argument was. I watched Greg's full video, and I did not watch the full podcast, of which Mike went on with a dermatologist apparently, and was talking about some of Greg's theories and where he disagrees. And basically, Greg is one who likes to tell people that they should be training harder. And when he's saying train harder, he wants people to train to failure, and he thinks people never train to failure, or maybe not as frequent as they should. Dr. Mike Israetel takes a very methodical, scientific approach to his training. If you know anything about Renaissance periodization, their training blocks are broken up into mesocycles, which you start on the lower end of the spectrum as far as volume, intensity, and work your way up towards the end of your mesocycle, where you are taking pretty much every set to failure, intensity's high, volume's high, and then you deload. I've applied it for myself. I applied the mesocycles, the periodization, and the progression scheme of Renaissance periodization, exactly like what Dr. Mike Israetel tells people to do. I did that for over 2 years in college. And to summarize it, you have a 4-week training block. Those first 2 weeks, 3 weeks really, out of the 4, you are training starting at RPE 6, 7, leaving 3 to 4 reps left in the tank, working your way up, and you're not going to be touching set to failure, especially with those big compound lifts, until week 4. So you really only, if you look at the macro spectrum of things, you're only going to be training to failure 12 weeks out of the year. And on the flip side, Greg says that he's training to failure pretty much every workout, especially for advanced lifters. You're not going to get by and see really any progress if you are leaving 3 to 4 reps in the tank, regardless of when you do it or why you do it. And it's funny, when I watch Greg's content, he doesn't say anything that is false. He's not saying any bullshit. He knows what he's talking about, and he explains everything with very simple terminology that the average person can understand. And when you look at Mike Israetel's content, a lot of the videos are 30 plus minutes long. It's fascinating, awesome content, tons of information, and he's going to break down such a micro topic and tell you exactly what you have to do from a scientific approach to put yourself in a position to receive the most optimal results. I believe that when Dr. Mike Israetel is talking about training to failure, and I know this just based off of watching Jared feather train and just watching Dr. Mike Israetel train himself on videos he posts on YouTube and Instagram, his failure, I mean, he's doing his reps with absolutely perfect form, no momentum, slow tempo, and that takes a lot of discipline. His technique is next to none. It's flawless. And if you really train to failure with perfect technique, one, it takes a lot of practice. Two, it takes a lot of experience, and three, it's really hard to understand like what true failure is with perfect technique. Now, when you look at someone like Greg, as intense and passionate he is about, train hard, go hard. I think what Dr. Mike Israetel was saying is Greg is not considering systemic fatigue and the amount of fatigue that you accumulate when you just go hard all the time. And I think that they are both saying the right things, and I think that they do agree with each other for the most part, but their way of teaching others is different. Now, as a beginner in the gym, do you need to be training to failure? No. Leaving reps in the tank probably going to be in your best interest if you are a beginner, but as you get more advanced and those marginal gains start diminishing, you're going to have to simply train harder. You're going to be stronger. So those loads you're going to be using are going to be more intense. I think that you're probably going to have to take more frequent deloads, and I'm not sure what Greg's view on deloads is, but basically you will have to be training harder than a beginner to see results. So when it comes to who I agree with more, look, I don't think Greg or Mike, one is more correct than the other. I know that what they are saying, it makes sense, and it's valid, and it's practical for everyone in the gym. But when it comes to like the way of teaching, the majority of people, I would have to lean towards Greg's side, and here's why. So like I said, Mike Israetel's content, I think, makes more sense for people who really want to understand the why behind training, the science behind training, and who have like a decent understanding already of terminology and just training in general, and the macro aspect of training, how you should plan training cycles beyond just 1 month, and just who want to optimize their training for their long-term goals. I think Mike Israetel does a great job all of his content is freaking awesome. I love it. Now, Greg, the majority of Greg's audience and most people's audience in the fitness industry are average gym goers, people who just want to be told probably the easiest thing to do. I mean, think about it. The fitness industry, like the market itself, I would guess 80 to 90% of the market, people buying supplements, buying fitness programs, hiring coaches, are people who are not necessarily wanting to know all the science behind things, who really don't give a damn about the highest terminology. Mike Israetel is very smart. You can tell that just by listening to the way he speaks. He's a very intelligent person. He knows a lot. But just because Greg simplifies his terminology and is a little more ecstatic and maybe doesn't come off as a super intelligent, science-backed person, what he's saying, the principles he is telling people to use, is also true in regards to training. There's just so many factors that, come into play with training to give good advice to average gym people. I think most commonly, there's a priority pyramid, right? I would say number one is, total volume and just progressively overloading. That is probably the most important principle. And I think a lot of average gym people worry about stuff way low on the priority pyramid, such as specific exercises they're doing and tempos. They worry about the littlest stuff like that before they're actually applying, the most important principles, such as progressive overload. And on top of that, I do agree that most average people don't train hard enough. They could be training harder. But on the flip side, this is where I kind of lean more towards Mike Israetel. I do see a lot of people who wouldn't be considered advanced lifters, maybe intermittent, but a lot of beginners who have terrible form, terrible technique, and they're just training as hard as they can. There's no structure behind it. They're pretty much doing what Greg is ultimately saying to do, which is train harder, train harder. But what I like about Dr. Mike Israetel's approach is he really considers fatigue management, and the reasoning for working up that intensity and volume scale is so that in the macro scale of things, you're able to really never plateau and to control your fatigue that you're going to accumulate, the systemic fatigue, so you're not always training to failure. Training to failure, your progress is not going to be linear. You're going to hit a wall and it's just not optimal. But going back to the other side again, I think most people don't train to failure, or most people don't train hard enough. And for you to really need a deload, you really have to experience what overreaching or overtraining really is. And I do not think a lot of people experience that. It really took me 6 years to perfect my technique and start training hard and close to failure and at failure with perfect technique and with high amounts of volume for me to really figure out what my overreaching and over training, like total volume amount was. And it's going to be different for everyone. Everyone's range is different. For some person, they could be doing too much volume for their biceps at maybe only 20 sets per week. Maybe a beginner, they're going to be on the lower end of the spectrum, 15 sets per week. There's just so many variables in training. Dr. Mike Israetel breaks it down from every single angle. Do you need to be doing every single thing perfect to see results? Absolutely not. Is the way that he teaches people and the terminology he uses, is it going to resonate with the majority of the market in the fitness industry? Absolutely not. But if an average gym person were to buy Dr. Mike Israetel's program or hire him as a coach, are they going to see results? Absolutely. What is the difference of doing things 80%, 90% correctly versus 100% to the T correctly based off studies and research? I'm not sure, but I would bet it's not that much, especially for visual, noticeable differences. But they both have great content, both know what they're talking about. I would love to see them have this debate live. And from personal experience, from doing everything to the T, science-backed, the way Renaissance Periodization likes to do it, and Dr. Mike Israetel, I've seen great results. I was able to really manage my fatigue, take proper deloads when I needed to, switch variations at perfect times, and I never really saw myself plateau. But can I say that I visually noticed a difference versus when back in the day when I was a beginner or started becoming an intermittent lifter, just went balls to the wall, not much strategy behind it? No, I can't say that it was a huge difference to me, but I am someone that likes to learn the science behind stuff. And if anything, from a coach's perspective, me being a coach, listening to Dr. Mike Israetel's content and learning about his methods of training, it's helped me create better programs for my clients. And even if they don't want to know the science behind everything that I'm having them do, I won't tell them. I will just know in the back of my mind that what they're doing makes a lot of sense. It's proven by studies, and it's going to give them results. At the end of the day, look, I think most people have shitty technique. If there's some final verdict I can say about the majority of people looking to build muscle or whatever their goals are in the gym, get stronger, technique has to be number one. We know people are going to train hard. We know people are going to try to do more than they did last week in the gym for the most part. But a lot of people do this without proper technique, and their ceiling for potential gains, I think, is lower than someone who has gotten the technique down. And learning technique, practicing it, using it properly with heavy weights takes a lot of practice. It takes years. And I think that should be your number one focus. And then get stronger and train hard with perfect technique. That's my ultimate advice.
Look, here's my perspective on it. Regardless of who is absolutely right, who is more wrong, blah, blah, blah. Look at these two dudes. They're both on the sauce that's known to the public. And regardless if they were or weren't, all I'm saying is they both look great, okay? You don't have to be doing everything to the T. There are tons of people, especially those with great genetics, who train like shit. They don't really apply all the science-backed principles, and they're still able to achieve results.
Hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely go check out Mike Israetel and Greg Doucette. They both have awesome content. So I'd love to hear what you think about their little back and forth thing they had going on. So leave a comment below. Let me know whose content you like more or methods you agree with more. I would love to know why. I appreciate you guys watching this video. Leave it a thumbs up. I'll see you in the next one.